Hi, I'm Danielle, and you have come once again to Oasis Lactation Services on YouTube. Today, I want to talk to you about something that's going to be very unpopular, but it's true. And it's overactive letdown, or fast milk ejection reflex might be what you've heard it called before. So here is the unpopular but true thing that we're going to talk about today. Overactive letdown is a myth. And what's really happening here is that we're having a breastfeeding problem, and rather than addressing that breastfeeding problem, we are blaming the breasts, saying, oh, the breasts just push too much milk out way too fast, too hard for the baby to breastfeed. And if it's too hard for the baby to breastfeed, well, what's the best solution? A bottle, of course. Bottles do not solve breastfeeding problems. Now, bottles can be an amazing tool as you reach your breastfeeding goal. Bottles are a great way to feed babies when we need to feed a baby and breastfeeding is not available. It's common, it's a tool most of us have. Most people really do know how to use a bottle. So this is not an anti-bottle. This is that bottles are not a solution to the breastfeeding problem. And when we continue to perpetuate the myth that overactive letdown or fast milk ejection reflex is a real thing, which it's not, we tell families feeding at the breast is too hard, don't do it, give the baby a bottle instead. So anytime a bottle is the first solution, that diagnosis that you've been given is probably not a real thing. It's probably something that's been accepted as normal because it's really about a lack of effort or knowledge on the part of the healthcare provider to help you get breastfeeding working for you and your baby. So let's talk about exactly what makes this a myth, why I have my baby with me, and what we're gonna do to solve it. So overactive letdown, when we talk about this concept, the symptoms are usually the same across the board. Baby goes to the breast, usually like this, or sometimes in that football hold that they absolutely love to use in the hospital. Right? And these can be great breastfeeding positions. So the baby's here at the breast, or the baby's here at the breast, and the milk begins to come out of the body, and the baby coughs, sputters. The baby may put his or her hands against the chest and push away. The baby may arch and scream and refuse the breast. Milk sometimes comes spraying out. Milk comes out of the baby's mouth and the baby is not really swallowing. Oftentimes the baby is gasping for air. And a lot of times parents say that they're worried that the baby's going to aspirate. They may even have been told by a healthcare provider that their baby is at risk of aspiration and thus developing pneumonia. Nobody wants their baby to develop pneumonia. These are very scary words that we're using. So let's think about what's really going on and what we can do to solve it. So babies that have a good structure, meaning they were born free of birth defects and free of birth trauma. So we know that when babies come out, either they come out the way they went in or they come out the top, right? So either you've had a vaginal delivery or a cesarean delivery. These are big experiences. It's kind of an amazing way to be born. And there's a lot of touching of the head and the face. There's a lot of squeezing through a tight space. If the baby is going to be born vaginally, there's a lot of squeezing through the birth canal, which is biologically appropriate. It's still a lot of squeezing, and we oftentimes see babies with these beautiful cone-shaped heads. I even had one as an infant. These beautiful cone-shaped heads from all the pressure of the birth process. Well, we know that the cone-shaped head is part of being a baby for some babies, and it does round out over time. Well, that still means that baby's experiencing a little bit of suboptimal structure, right? So some things get all squeezed up and back Maybe even if all of that skin has been squeezed back, we've got some tightness in the face. Well, if I had tightness in my face, I'd kind of look amazing. If I had tightness in my face and I'm trying to open wide, well, that's not really working for me. Or if I'm trying to drink, that might not really work for me because I've got all that stretching. So sometimes the structural issue that's causing baby to have these arch and gasp kinds of behaviors is really something that's just an artifact from birth. And you know what? Babies are really moldable. So we can get them right back on track a lot of times. If there's something that's bigger going on structurally, like you have an oral tie, tethered oral tissue, a tongue tie, such that baby's having a really hard time moving that tongue up and down, in and out, and side to side to manage fluid in the mouth. Well, of course they're gonna back off and gasp and be really, really upset. So there are multiple, these are just two examples. There are multiple structural issues that lactation consultants should be screening for that could explain this behavior that we call overactive letdown. So really, in that situation, because structure is the problem, we're blaming the breasts, we're blaming the parents, we're saying, oh, breastfeeding's not gonna work for this baby. We're taking the baby off the breast, we're giving a bottle. We didn't solve the breastfeeding problem. We didn't solve the structural issue. Now, what if that's a structural issue that your child will need addressed in the future? This is concerning, right? So breastfeeding is a great indicator behavior. If breastfeeding's not going well, if latch on is difficult, if maintaining a clear airway while feeding is difficult, that's your baby's way of inviting you to investigate and do some early intervention. Oftentimes these things have a quick, solvable, easy path because they're so young and babies are just so good at developing rapidly, right? So number one, if you've been told you have an overactive letdown, structure, check the structure. Number two is function. Sometimes everything looks perfect. Sometimes everything is built completely perfect. We have this beautiful, gorgeous baby that you made yourself, right? And this baby is not very good at a few things. And that can be okay, right? Babies are not good at walking when they're first born. It takes them about a year to do that. They're not good at sitting up, right? It takes them about 6 months to do that. But eating is something that they are supposed to be able to do if they're born full term. Now, if they've got that structural problem, function will follow, right? If the structures are not working, then function will be a problem. However, there are some kids that do have completely normal structures that need to learn some things, and that's okay. However, taking that baby off the breast, blaming the mother's body, saying, oh, your milk's just too fast, and providing a bottle does not teach the baby how to function better, does not solve the breastfeeding problem. So if the baby is born with a functional deficit, which is fairly common, right? It's very common that babies are born not knowing things, right? However, we can help them know how to do this. We can give them functional exercises, improve their skills at the breast, and get that baby back to the breast, breastfeeding really well. And because eating is a foundational function that all other developmental milestones are based on. I know that sounds strange, but eating is that first thing that they do on their own. And it is the foundation for all the other things that they eventually do independently. So we've got to get this right. Blaming the breastfeeding, blaming the mother's milk ejection is not addressing a functional deficit. So now we're on to part 3. What is the third thing that gets mislabeled overactive letdown? Positioning. So there's lots of ways to hold a baby, lots of good ways to hold a baby. Babies love to be held. You cannot overhold a baby. Now, there are some ways that when baby is positioned at the breast, baby is more successful and can hold their airway open better, can make deeper jaw movements, can have their hands involved correctly. So when we talk about positioning as a way to solve overactive letdown, we are often told to put the baby in a reclined position on top of the parent's body so that gravity is holding back that milk. It may work for your baby and it may work for you, particularly if there are no structural or functional deficits going on in addition, right? So it could help. It definitely could help. However, it's kind of hard to take that reclined position and go someplace with your baby. And most of the time, we like to take them places and show them off, right? You created them, they're really, really cute, and it's time to go places. You may not be able to stop at the mall or at the library or even at a friend's house and get real cozy and lay this baby on top of you. So here is the number one way to position a baby so that their airway is well supported and the baby feels confident and posturally secure. So postural stability, that's what we want with positioning. We want the baby to not feel like they are floating out in space. So you know babies have that Moro reflex and they're always extending their arms and kicking their legs and moving their heads around, right? Like they're worried they're falling in space. So that Moro reflex is going to stay active until the baby integrates that reflex. And every time baby does stuff, they're going to feel around and try to figure out where they exist in space and time. So the best thing we can do is give them something to give them input. Pushing against the air is not the input they're looking for. They're looking for input against a grown-up's body. The more they're held, the more they feel secure. So unpack my breast. And so I'm going to get my baby tummy to tummy. Nose, belly button, and toes are all pointed to the breast. I'm going to get my baby's arms up so that the baby can give the breast a hug. Now, I have quite a long torso. If you don't, that's okay. You can use your leg. You can extend the leg, and that gives the baby a kind of a deeper seat. If you feel like you have a really long torso and that the baby's not close enough to the breast, don't worry. We do want them to look up. So as you can see with my baby has tummy to tummy, toes pointing toward me. My baby's legs are nice and long. Your baby's legs probably still frog up. That's okay. But we want to get those toes, nose, and belly button all pointed toward the breast. So everything's in a nice alignment. You've probably been told to get the ear, the shoulder, and the hip in a nice line in order to breastfeed. And that will happen, right? Well, this will be kind of at an angle, but these things will all be nicely lined up if we've got the nose, the belly button, and the toes all facing towards the breast. So my breast is way above my baby. And as you can see, I'm not holding my baby's head. I'm holding my baby between the shoulder blades. I'm holding my baby by the trunk. So my baby's getting input from my body on the arms, on the stomach, and on the legs. My baby does not need to fly back and look for something to bear against. My baby does not need to hunt for his or her position in space because all of this front input on the body is helping my baby navigate. So now my baby has postural stability. The head, you notice my baby's looking all the way up at me. Baby's so cute, right? This is the visual focal field of babies. This is their focal length. So they can easily see your face. You can see the baby. Baby's head is nice and back. And one of the things you've probably never thought about, but you'll notice in your baby, is that when, I'll use this as my cup, when you go to take a drink after a long run, or just we're waking up in the middle of the night thirsty, right? We usually tilt our head back so that we can drink quickly. Tilting the head back to drink quickly is very common in humans. We see this in advertising. We see it in movies, films, television, all the time, right? Tilting the head back to drink quickly. And those people who are tilting their head back to drink quickly, they are satisfied. They are not disappointed at how fast that liquid is coming out, right? That is the goal. That is their desire, to get that in quickly. So look, now my baby's head is in that movie star position, right? For a perfect, big, deep drink. Baby is ready for a fast flow of milk. Babies like a fast flow of milk. I love to eat. Babies love to eat even more than grown-ups who are foodies love to eat. So now baby is in that movie star feeding position, head is back, airway is long, supported. Maybe you were told that your baby has reflux and that's why your baby arches their back. If your baby has this nice extension, even if they do have something refluxing up, things are staying lower than if baby's feeding like this, right? Because we've extended that esophagus. So now baby doesn't have to arch back and fight. The esophagus is already nice and long. The airway is already nice and long. My baby's ready, just like a sports drink commercial, to chug, right? If the milk is coming out fast, it stimulates the baby to swallow, suck, breathe, suck, swallow, breathe, suck, swallow, breathe, over and over and over again. They respond to the flow. Well, when my baby gets on, because my baby's gonna have to go in chin first, that nipple is gonna be all the way up into the top of my baby's mouth. Babies love having the breast all the way up in the top of their mouth. To them, it feels amazing. There's a reflexive loop that happens where they feel something up there and they have to suck on it. They're stimulated by reflex. They suck on it and then more milk comes out, which makes them more stimulated. So if they maintain that reflexive stimulation, they'll stay on the breast because their reflexes say that they have to. So if the baby's popping off, it's not because the milk is too fast for them. It's because either they can't breathe because they're tucked like this in a football position and now they can't breathe, or they're so poorly positioned, maybe baby's tummy and belly button are up here and their neck is turned, right? That's no way to eat. So they can't keep that nipple up in the roof of the mouth to maintain that reflexive suck pattern over and over and over again. So they come off and they want to reorient themselves. When a baby flails back, what they really want is to reorient themselves. So we're looking for this body to body position. Baby's looking up, chin lifted, chin comes into the breast first. That nipple goes way up in the roof of the mouth, way back in the mouth. And now any flow of milk is enjoyable because baby's in that Hollywood drinking position, right? Time to get a bunch of stuff in your mouth, nice lifted chin. So if you have been told that you have an overactive letdown and that you need to pump off some milk before you feed your baby, well, shouldn't the baby get that milk? Yeah, that milk's really important to your baby. Nobody ever said, gosh, I wish I would have fed my baby less, you know? We want these babies to get all the breast milk that they need so that they can grow. If you've been told to pump beforehand to slow your letdown, that's because somebody did not want to check for structure, function, and postural stability. If you've been told that it's just reflux, nobody checked for structure, function, postural stability. There is always a reason why babies do things. They're not willful and cruel. They are asking for our help, and it's time to stop blaming the parent. It's time to stop blaming the breast. Don't tell mothers, oh, your breasts are just like a fire hose. They're not good enough, because your breasts are good enough. They're excellent, in fact. And we're not going to let lazy healthcare providers come up with fad statements like overactive letdown reflex. It's just completely made up so that we take the baby off the breast, put the baby on a bottle. And that doesn't solve the breastfeeding problem. And a lot of times it turns people into unwilling exclusive pumpers. Being an exclusive pumper is a really, really cool way of feeding your baby, particularly if that's working for your family. But if your first choice is at breastfeeding, then becoming an exclusive pumper is a last resort. Let's fix structure, function, postural stability. Get those big 3 things handled, and then we'll come back and make long-term decisions about how we're gonna feed the baby, right? So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something about trusting your body and believing in your baby, that your baby is a good communicator, and that we're gonna listen and we're gonna solve this mystery. And really, as you move forward in your breastfeeding journey, it's gonna always come back to those 3 big things: structure, function, postural stability. If you and baby have those things, you guys are just fine. And you're gonna be able to meet your breastfeeding goal. If one of those 3 key things is off, it's time to get some help. I would love to be your lactation consultant. You can go to oasislactationservices.com, click book an appointment. I am available for telehealth all over the world, actually. And I am taking some US-based health insurances. You can get more details on my website, oasislactationservices.com. Well, thank you so much for watching my video. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. Share this video with a friend. I know that you know somebody who's been falsely told that they have overactive letdown. Share it with your friend, spread the word. Let's demand that we get better breastfeeding care. Let's demand that we have a better shot of meeting our breastfeeding goals because we got good information that respects our bodies and respects our babies' bodies. I will see you next time on Oasis Lactation Services on YouTube.